Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my birth story video, and my baby is already going to be 5 months old, so I'm barely getting around to doing it, and I am excited to tell you guys what my birth was like. So stay tuned and let's go ahead and get started. So my baby was actually born on April 19, 2016 at 2:16 p.m. and I actually started contractions 24 hours before she was born, exactly at 2 p.m. So pretty much 24 hours. Anyway, so I started very painless contractions at around 2 on a Monday, and they kept going on every 7 minutes, and I started timing them between 2 and 5 p.m. and after 5 p.m. they began to be more regular, so they were between like 4 to 5 minutes apart. So at around that time I began to think that this was going to be labor because they were so close together. But let me tell you, these contractions were not painful at all. Like, they kind of felt like Braxton Hicks contractions more than anything else. So I was still worried though, because after like 6 p.m. they began to be a little bit painful, but not too much. And at the time my husband was working, so I didn't have anyone to take me to the hospital because we actually only own one car, so I needed someone to come pick me up and get to the hospital. And I texted my friend, and she was actually working, but her husband was able to come and pick me up. So anyways, we went to the hospital at around 6:30 in the evening, and they checked me, and then they told me that I was at 3 centimeters. And at this hospital they only admit you at around 5 to 6 centimeters, which is crazy to me, but that's what they do. And this is the hospital on base. So, and my husband actually works at this hospital, so by the time that I was going to get there, he would be there. He told me to go back home and to exercise, to walk, to just move around, and then try to eat, take a shower, everything like that, and then come back when I think that they were super painful and I couldn't handle them anymore. So then I went back home and I did everything they told me. I bounced on my exercise ball, I went for a jog, I just did everything I could. So then at around 12 they began to be super painful to the point where I couldn't even handle them. But I told myself, this time if I go back to the hospital, it has to be the real thing, because I don't want to be sent home again. And I mean, we live like 30 minutes away from the hospital, so I did not want to be driving all night long so many times. So I stayed home and I said to myself, I'm gonna go try and take a nap and see if it works and if my contractions calm down, and we'll see what happens. So I tried to take a nap, but obviously this never happened because they were super painful that I just couldn't. And at around 12:30 or 1, I told my husband that I couldn't take it anymore and that we needed to go, that I thought I was ready. So we went ahead and got to the hospital, and they checked me again, and I had not progressed at all. As you can imagine, I was super disappointed, but it was what it was, and I had to go back home once again. And this time they told me, just go back home, and when you really think that you can't anymore, then just go ahead and come back. And I'm like, but I can't anymore, like this is too much for me. But then I still had to go back home and deal with the contractions. Anyways, so we came back home and I took a very hot shower, and that really helped a lot with my contractions. Like, I felt so good when I took that shower. So once I got out of the shower, I decided to go to the living room and just try and watch a show because I couldn't take a nap, I couldn't go to sleep. So I just went to the living room, and as soon as I sat down, I felt like a huge gush of water just coming out. And when I did, I just yelled at my husband and I told him about it. So I told my husband what had happened, and he told me to call the hospital and see if they knew if it was my water, because I wasn't sure. So anyways, I called and they told me, if you keep leaking for the next hour, girl, you need to calm down, girl. then that means it is your water, and if you don't, then it's not. So I kept leaking for the whole hour, and I told my husband, let's go, because I'm sure this is. We did, and then they went ahead and checked if it was amniotic fluid, and indeed it was, so they admitted me at around, it was around 5 in the morning. So they hooked me up to everything, and they asked me if I wanted an epidural, and my initial plan was to go without the epidural. But at this point, guys, my contractions were so painful that I just couldn't take it anymore. So I went ahead and I got the epidural, and it was actually not as painful as I thought it would be. Seriously, I was so afraid to get it, but it wasn't as painful as I thought. So at around 7 is when they gave me the epidural, and that was such a mistake because I got it way too early. I was at around 4 centimeters at this time, so I got it way too early. But the only thing that the epidural actually helped me for was to take, you know, a few naps here and there while I was laboring. Other than that, my right side, my whole right side was so numb, and I couldn't even feel my leg. I couldn't do anything. And then on my left side, it didn't work at all. So I was like able to feel all of my contractions on my left side, and on my right side it was completely numb. So yeah, I got my epidural, and this whole time I'm having contractions like every 2 to 3 minutes, and I can feel them. So while I'm napping and stuff, nurses and doctors are coming in and out just to check. Around 12 at noon, I was ready. I was already at 10 centimeters, so I was ready to start pushing, which I was so excited. And I told myself that my baby would be here in no time, because I did not want to be here anymore because I couldn't handle those contractions. Horrible time to film. Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? So we started doing some practice pushing, and that didn't go too well because as soon as we started doing those, I started shaking like no other, and it was so crazy. I asked the nurse, I was like, is this normal? And she told me that most women do shake, but that I was shaking more than normal, and she thought it was a little bit weird as well. So I don't know, I started seeing her like with the weird face, and after 15 minutes of us trying to push and stuff, she went outside and she told me that she would be back, and then she took like 30 minutes, and when she came back, she told me that I had an infection, and that my temperature was super high, and that my baby's blood pressure was super high as well, so that we had to try and get the baby out as soon as possible. But it took me like 2.5 hours to push my baby out. Like, it was the hardest thing ever, especially because of the infection. It just made things like extra difficult for me to push because I had a lot of lack of energy. I was super tired. The infection was affecting me a lot, and I was just in a lot of pain. So I honestly thought I was going to die. I told my husband it was horrible. But anyways, at around 2, a whole bunch of doctors and nurses just started to come in. And the nurse told me, don't get scared, but there's going to be a lot of doctors in here. And I cannot tell you, there was like around 15 doctors inside my room. And there was this one doctor, and I will always remember her because she just was so encouraging to me, and she told me that I was able to do it because I thought I couldn't. Like, after trying so hard to push my baby out, I just couldn't do it, and she was so encouraging to me. And I told her, I was like, you need to deliver my baby. You need to be here and help me deliver my baby because I can't do it without you, because she was just so encouraging to me. Anyways, and my husband was there the whole time too, and he was just so supportive, always holding my hand. And guys, I told the doctor, if I don't scream, I cannot take my baby out. So every push, I had to scream my lungs out, because otherwise I wasn't going to be, like, that was my way to get my energy, just like by screaming. just like this one. So every push I had to, you know, push and scream, push and scream. And finally at 2:16, my baby was out. It was the happiest moment of my life, but also the hardest because my baby was born super purple. She had fluid in her lungs, and she was also born with the infection that I had developed during labor. And the infection that I had was chorioid. I believe that's how it's called. I'm not too sure, but so my baby also had the infection. So as soon as she came out, they like just gave her to me, and I started like taking everything off just so we can have some skin to skin contact and to breastfeed. And I was trying to do that, and then I grabbed her, I gave her a kiss, and the nurse like never let her go. She always like was there, and I just gave her a kiss, and then she took her away. And they took her away because of the fluid in her lungs. So they were just like on a side table, you know, where they put the newborns and stuff, and they were just trying to take all of the fluid out of her. And I was just like bawling my eyes out and just hoping that everything would be okay. And I kept asking, I was like, is my baby okay? What is going on? Like, I was just so scared for her. Anyway, so they told me it'll only be 15 minutes and then, you know, we'll hand her back to you. But they lied to me because that didn't happen. After 15 minutes, they actually took her out and they took her to special nursery room. And I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what is going on? And this whole time I'm just crying and crying and crying. And I told my husband just to go and see what was going on and to check on her and to go see her. And then my husband left, so I stayed alone in the room. And after an hour, I believe, my husband came back and he told me that no one let him see our baby, and that actually one of the nurses was like so rude to him and told him to leave. So we're in the room so upset that our baby is not with us. They were doing I don't know what to our baby. So after like an hour and a half to 2 hours, they came and they set me up on the wheelchair and they let us go see our baby. And our baby was hooked up to so many things because she did have this infection that they had to give her antibiotics. So she also, her oxygen levels were super low, so she had like this helmet on her for oxygen, and then she was plugged into so many things. It looked so bad, but the nurse told me it's going to look bad, but it's not as bad as it seems. So when I saw my baby again, I started crying and crying because it was the hardest thing to see my baby just laying there without her mom and just hooked up to so many things. And in my mind, I was just like, this was not supposed to be this way. But I just prayed to God that she would be okay, and you know, that everything would turn out just fine. And I'm gonna go ahead and show you some of the clips that I was able to get when she was hooked up to everything. So for the first 24 hours of her life, she wasn't able to eat anything because she was just on fluids through an IV, and I wasn't able to breastfeed her at all, so I had to be pumping. And after that, I tried breastfeeding her when she was, you know, like a little bit better. The first time that I tried breastfeeding her, she latched on pretty good and we were able to breastfeed, but the second and third time, it was so difficult to be able to breastfeed that they had to give her a bottle with my colostrum. So that was very upsetting because I was really hoping that breastfeeding would work. I'm gonna go ahead and not tell you too much about my breastfeeding because I do want to go ahead and do a video about it. We are breastfeeding right now, so it obviously ended up working, but I do want to go ahead and do a more in detail video about my breastfeeding. So let me know if you would like to see something like that. So the doctor actually told us that our baby was going to have to stay in the hospital for the next 6 days, and I was going to be discharged 2 days later, but I was still going to be able to stay there with my baby, which is a huge thing about like military hospitals, because there isn't like too many patients and stuff. So the whole time I was able to stay there with my baby. So she was actually in special care nursery for around 3 days, and then after those 3 days she was able to be in the room with me. And every time that she needed antibiotics, they would just come to the room and come get her. And so we were in the hospital for about 7 days in total, and I cannot tell you how difficult those days were for me, especially because I had just had a baby and I was like super emotional every single day. My hormones were getting back in place and stuff like that, so it was the hardest thing for me. Especially knowing that my baby was still sick. That was super hard for me. I cried every single day that I was there, but thankfully my baby is okay now, and you know, I am so grateful for her. So anyways, after those 7 days in total, we were able to come back home, and that was the happiest moment of my life. Like, all I wanted to do this whole time since I had my baby is just be home, begin to be a mom here at home, and you know, experience the whole thing and not be at a hospital. Like, it was horrible. But how I said again, she is perfectly fine now. She does not have the infection anymore. Those antibiotics were able to get rid of everything, and I am just so grateful for, you know, the doctors, and I am so thankful that God always protected my baby. So anyways, guys, that is my whole birth story. If you have any, like, you know, stories similar, just write them down below, or just tell me your whole birth story on the comments. I will not mind to, you know, read them and then reply back to you guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe because I upload very regularly, and you know, if you want to see more of my baby and also me, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Oh, also follow me on social media. I have an Instagram and I also have Snapchat if you would like to follow me and see more, you know, behind the scenes and my, you know, my daily life and stuff. I post on a lot on both of them, especially Snapchat. I love Snapchat so much. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you guys later. Bye.